oh my gosh, is he serious? That is not the right way to do it. And an account I follow says not to blank. If you've ever had these thoughts, you might be married and you might have a newborn. You're trying to figure it out together and you're like, what the heck is happening? First of all, we had to figure out marriage, and now we have a kid, and it's a whole new ball game. So today we're going to be talking about 5 tips to navigate the new normal of marriage after becoming parents. Welcome to Becoming a Mindful Mom. I'm your host, Courtney Tong, and I am a wife and a mom who believes that our spiritual life doesn't have to be stale and stoic, but that it can be beautiful and flowing into every part of our life, our marriage, and our motherhood. If you are tired of feeling overwhelmed, isolated, and simply surviving in motherhood, you are not alone. I want to equip you with the tools to have healthy boundaries, authentic connections with others, and a flourishing spiritual life. If you are ready to become the best version of you as a beloved daughter of the King, as a spouse, as a mom, as a friend, you are in the right place. I want you to go to the microwave, grab the tea or coffee that you already forgot about, throw some ice in it like we did it on purpose, and let's get started. Okay, so I used that example of, this account that I follow because this is a thought that I've actually had myself. It's pretty hard because part of my, nesting, if you will, or just the process of becoming a mom, I was super into researching everything. I wanted to be super prepared. And of course, most of it didn't go how I planned, but it's fine. That in that moment of preparing, it made me feel more secure. So I guess that's fine if it helped satiate my anxiety a little bit. I don't know. It was also COVID, so a lot happening, and figuring out all the things in my head gave me a little bit of peace of mind, but I digress. Because I had been looking up so many things, it actually led to a little bit of stress and tension, and it still does sometimes with me in song, because I had read and researched, and this is the right way, or this is the best way, or this is the latest version of what they say you should do. And so it led to a little bit of tension between us because I was reading and researching all those things, and he was not reading up on quite the same stuff that I was. And so the first tip that I would have for you is you just need to realize he did not pour over all of the reels and the Pinterest articles that you did. Okay? I poured over them and he did not. So here we were, and we were kind of coming out ahead, and it comes up every once in a while because if it's a new issue or something else I had read about or whatever, it would resurface again. So I have to remind myself of this even still today, but this is a great reminder that it's not even just your job to fill them in. It's just maybe okay if it's not the same. I mean, if it's something that's really important, that you want to be aligned and on the same page, cool. But I think we probably need to pause a little bit and say, okay, is this worth it to potentially cause an argument? And probably at least half the time my answer was no, and I just needed to let it go. So that'd be my advice for you. And the number 2 thing that I would say, as you're adjusting to having a new kid, and maybe it's not a newborn, maybe they're still toddlers and you're still adjusting, but I would say the second thing is remember that he cannot read your mind or your hormone levels, okay? So the stuff that is happening, especially postpartum, I had some really bad, hormonal, postpartum rage, I think technically is what it would qualify as. It wasn't anything that was diagnosed, but I could just literally feel the hormones coursing through my body and just so easily angered, and there was just a lot. But he couldn't tell any of that, right? That was all happening internally, and then I would just explode, and he's like, what is happening? I'm like, I don't know what is happening. So that was a whole thing. Just in general, I think kind of marriage advice, they can't read your mind, right? But we forget. Or if you're like me, I'm like, well, if he knows me well enough, then if he loves me enough, then he's gonna know, right? We've been together for a while, and then it's they totally missed the clue, and then you're all frustrated. One time we drove home on a road trip, the last 30 minutes, maybe even an hour. I didn't say a word. And we get home and I'm like, did you not know that I'm mad at you? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I didn't talk to you for an hour. And he's like, oh my gosh, I thought we were just enjoying the silence. And I'm like, no, I was like throwing daggers at you in my mind. What is happening? So all that to say, not always on the same page, but another layer with this, not only can he not tell what's going on, but also there is a lot when you have a newborn. And we bear a lot of that weight as the moms. And it's really hard to ask for help. And so if we're tying in those two things together where we're assuming that they're going to know what our needs are, then we could get really frustrated and potentially be harboring bitterness when they literally don't even know what's going on. So if you need help, if there's something that you're struggling with or there's something that you would like help with, just voice that. Don't assume that they're not paying attention on purpose. I think give them the benefit of the doubt and let them know that you could use some help. The third thing I would say is to make time to pray together. This can be hard. It feels like maybe you're both exhausted or you're just like, we've been doing what we can to survive. If I close my eyes to pray, I'm literally going to fall asleep, which is legitimate. In that case, I would say just sit together and like go through things that you're grateful for or ways that you've seen the Lord take care of you or provide for you in that day. So just specifically reflect on the day before and offer that thanks to the Lord. It could be something big, it could be something small. But I think for us to kind of take time to align our hearts and to pause together. So be praying, be doing your own thing separately, but also making time to pray together. Okay, another way that you can be mindful and be so intentional as you are entering into this new season, having kids while you're married, is to give each other breaks and time with friends. This was something that I think we knew, but we learned a lot more after we had moved back to Texas from Georgia. We had been away from friends for the first few months of our son's life. And so as we were moving back to Texas, where a lot of our friends from grad school were, Song was like, yeah, you need to go be with people. I'm an extrovert. I love connecting with my friends, deep connections, authentic connections. And we realized that when I was in Georgia, I just wasn't getting my cup filled in that way that I really needed. I needed to be with people. I needed to connect to people. I needed to be in proximity with people. So when we moved back to Texas, we had to kind of set aside that time. Like, hey, I'm going to watch the babe so that you can go. Or vice versa. Whether it's making time to go to the gym or hang out with friends or go play soccer or whatever it is, it could literally be just to have a moment to walk outside by yourself. That's fine. But recognize what you need, and then y'all make a trade to say, hey, I'm going to have time to cover you so that you can go do what you got to do and help have each other's backs in that way. And the last thing I would say is prioritize time together. This is so important. And we still struggle with this, especially being away from family. We don't have any built-in babysitters. And so to say, hey, we're going to go on a date night means 1, we have to find somebody that's available. 2, we have to pay them. There's just so many considerations. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like it's worth it. So this could be time together as a family with you and the kids, or more importantly, not all the time. It doesn't need to be like every other day or even every week, because that can be a lot of pressure. But just make sure that you have time, intentional time with just the two of you. And some of the best advice that I heard is to make sure that when you are on your date nights, that you don't just sit down and start handling family business. And by that I mean, oh, hey, did you pay that bill? Hey, did you see da 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 da? Because if you're anything like us, that could be a source of tension a little bit. No, just us? Okay. Yeah, it's been not always our best conversations are coming out of that because we're literally going 90 miles an hour, both of us, and then all of a sudden we're slamming together on this date night. We've got so many things we want to talk about. We got so much built up, and then if it just all comes crashing out, then it's not even a fun date at that point. So set that aside. Have time, separate time to handle the business stuff, like make sure you're paying your bills and make sure you're doing your thing. I'm not saying ignore that, but have a designated time for that is separate from intentional time together. So those are our 5 tips to navigate the new normal of marriage after becoming parents. 1, realizing he didn't pour over all the reels and the articles that you did. 2, he can't read your mind, so please ask for help. 3, make time to pray together. 4, give each other breaks and time with friends. And 5, prioritize time together. Thank you, sister, for joining me for today's episode. Whether you were preparing dinner, doing laundry, nursing the baby, or commuting to work, I am glad that you brought me along for the journey. And I would love to connect with you over at Instagram or our Facebook group, both of which are linked in the show notes. Or you can shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you.
Don't forget which Bobby you feel.
All right, there you have it, folks. Straight from the mouth of babes. That's my son. If you are blessed or encouraged by this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would take a quick moment and leave a review. And if you have a mom friend that you think needs to hear this episode, be sure to share it with them as well. All right, girlfriend, may you continue to rest in the peace of God amidst the craziness of motherhood. Meet you back here next week.